Imagine a small town in Wisconsin with trees stretching out as far as the eye can see and whispering your name. Take one wrong step and you run into him, the Faceless Man. That's what happened in Blackthorn, and believe me, you'll not sleep well after this. It was the 1st October in Blackthorn, Wisconsin. Bitter cold that seeps inside your bones and won't leave. Blackthorn was a small town, 1,000 people, in a valley where the Northwoods stretched on and on. Miles and miles of birch and pine that ate up the horizon. The nearest city was Eau Claire, 2 hours away, and the town's only claim to fame was a defunct lumber mill that packed up in the 80s. Main Street had a bar, a general store, and a church with a steeple that was ever so slightly to the left. Folks minded their own business, and the woods minded theirs. This story starts with Lucas Reed, 27 years of age and having just returned to Blackthorn after a catastrophic breakup in Milwaukee. Lucas was a qualified carpenter, handyman, with a quiet confidence that commanded respect from those about him. He sported dark hair that consistently seemed to fall into his eyes, and a little scar on his chin from a childhood bike accident, and he had a nervous tendency to drum his fingers. He had left Blackthorn at 18 and promised never to go back. But life has a way of pulling you where you don't want to go, and now he was living in his mom's old house on the edge of town, where the woods swallowed everything whole. The first evening, Lucas was moving boxes into the house, which groaned as if it were talking to itself. The house didn't differ much. Same peeling paint, same smell of mildew, same gaze at the trees pushing into the backyard. He was hauling trash to the curb when he heard it. A whisper, a soft snap, as if the sound of quarreling voices just out of hearing. He halted, his breath fogging in the chill. The woods were dark, the pines softly creaking, though there was no wind. "Hello," he bellowed, his voice a mouse's squeak. Nothing answered, but the whisper stopped, and there was a quiet that felt thicker than it was. He waved it off, assuming the long drive and too much coffee. But when he turned to go back to the house, something changed out of the corner of his eye. A tall, thin figure standing at the tree line. He blinked and it disappeared. His heart racing, he scolded himself that it was a deer or an illusion. However, he locked the door that night, something he never did as a kid. The next day, Lucas stopped by the general store to purchase supplies. It was a time capsule in there, a wooden floor, jars of penny candy, and a bulletin board plastered with missing pet postings. Behind the counter, there sat Sarah Klein, his high school lab partner. She was now 26, with a nose freckle and blonde hair tied up in a sloppy bun. Sarah had stayed in Blackthorn, running the shop with her dad, and possessed a smile that could light up a room. She smiled at Lucas. "Heard you were back. City life too much for you?" He grinned, running his hand over the back of his neck. "Something like that. Needed a reboot, you know." They pulled up, exchanging stories at the counter. Lucas mentioned the whispering he'd heard, facetiously, hoping she'd laugh. But the smile left Sarah's face. "You heard it too, huh?" she whispered. "Folks around here call it the forest whispers. Occurred more and more recently." He raised an eyebrow. "The wind?" She bent forward, staring at the empty store. "Not the wind. People say things out there. Names, voices. My cousin says she heard her mom calling her last week, but her mom's been dead 5 years." Sarah hesitated, then went on. "And some say they've seen him." "Who's him?" Lucas asked, although something in his gut already knew. "Faceless Man," she breathed barely. "Old story. Supposedly he lives in the woods. No face, just empty. Shows up when the rumors start. You see him, you don't come back the same. Lucas produced a laugh, but it didn't ring quite right. Sounds like something kids say to scare each other. Maybe, Sarah had said, but her eyes had been sincere. Just be careful, okay? Don't go in the woods at night. He had nodded, grabbing his shopping and leaving. But Sarah's warning stayed with him, bothering the edges of his mind. That night, he was unable to sleep, the house uncomfortably quiet, the woods astonishingly loud. Around 1 a.m., the whispering started again, louder now, like whoever it was standing just outside his window. "Lucas," it whispered, soft but urgent. He sat up straight, his heart pounding. The voice wasn't his mom's, wasn't anyone he knew. It was off, like it was trying to be human but couldn't quite do it. He grabbed his flashlight and his trusty old baseball bat, more out of habit than bravery. The backyard was empty, the flash of light cutting through the darkness. The whispering stopped, but the air hung, thick and heavy, as if weighing on his skin. He scanned across the tree line, and there it was again, that lean, tall figure just past the pines. It didn't move, didn't breathe, but Lucas felt its eyes, heavy and empty. He stumbled backward, his heel snagged on a root, and turned to see it was gone. The next morning he called Sarah, still shaking as he held the phone. "I saw something last night," he said, pacing his kitchen. "In the woods. Strange? Tall? You weren't messing with me about that faceless man thing, were you?" Her voice was tight. "Where are you? I'm coming over." Sarah came 20 minutes later, her pickup fogging the driveway in dust. She was upset, her usual sparkle dampened. "My dad also heard the whispers last night," she said, sitting at Lucas's kitchen table. "He's lived here 50 years and he's never heard them this loud." "Something's amiss, Lucas." They were going to research the history of the town to try and find some answers. Blackthorn's library was a single room in the church basement, smelling of damp paper and candle wax. The librarian, Mrs. Heller, was in her 80s, with a sharp memory and a sharper tongue. She pointed them to a stack of old records, town logs, newspapers, even a few diaries. "You're not the first to ask about the woods," she said, her eyes narrowing. "Won't be the last." They riffled through yellowed pages for hours. Most of it was boring, crop reports, births and deaths. But one diary penned in 1923 by a woman named Abigail Voss brought them up short. Abigail referred to voices in the woods, calling out her family by name. She wrote about a man with no face, only shadow, who was spotted by woodcutters, who promptly disappeared soon after. The last entry was scribbled in frantic handwriting. "It knows us. It dons what we dread." And Abigail's name was erased from the records. "There's more," Sarah said, holding up a newspaper clipping from 1956. It covered a hunter found walking the woods, rambling about a blank man who chased him. He was locked in an asylum, never recovered his sanity. Such stories cropped up every so often, every several decades. Rumors, glimmers, people changed or gone. Lucas's stomach twisted. "This is real, isn't it? Whatever this thing is out there, it's been around forever." Sarah nodded, her face pale. "And it's waking up." They spent the night together at Lucas's house, too scared to be alone. They blocked the doors, pulled the curtains, and tried to distract each other with a film, but the tension was suffocating. At midnight, the power flickered, the television going to static. The whispers came back, more vocal, spinning around the house. "Lucas! Sarah!" they hissed, piling on top of each other as a chorus of ghosts. Sarah grabbed his arm, her nails digging in. "It knows we're here." Lucas clutched the bat, his palms sweaty. "Stay close," he said, though his voice shook. They checked every window, every door. Everything was locked, but the whispers grew, now mixed with a low, rhythmic hum, like a heartbeat. The air turned cold, the floorboards creaking as if something heavy was moving inside the house. And then they saw it. In the living room on the black television screen was a figure, tall, unbearably gaunt, its head a shiny, featureless void. It towered behind them, motionless. Sarah screamed, and Lucas swung the bat, hitting nothing but air. The figure had disappeared, but the hum grew louder, pounding in their chests. "We can't be here," Lucas said, seizing his keys. They ran to his truck, the murmurs behind them now yelling their names. The engine roared to life, and they sped down the highway to town, the woods a whirlwind of black and green. But something was wrong. Too compact, the trees too close. The headlights flared, and for an instant, Lucas saw it on the road. The faceless man, its headless face tilted, arms outstretched. He veered, the truck spinning, and when he looked again, it vanished. They made it to the bar, the only place still open. Inside, a handful of locals nursed beers, their faces grim. The bartender, an old man named Cal, listened as they spilled the story. "You're not crazy," he said, pouring them each a shot. "It's been quiet for years, but it always comes back. The whispers, the man with no face. My brother saw it in '72. Never spoke again." "What is it?" Sarah breathed, her voice almost non-existent. Cal shrugged, his gaze distant. "Some claim it's the forest itself, hungry for something we can't give. Others claim it's something older, something we disturb when we cut down the trees. All I know is you don't run from it. You resist it, or it devours you." Lucas and Sarah didn't sleep that night, huddled in a booth, jumping at every sound. In the morning, they had a plan, half-baked and desperate. Go into the woods, find where the whispers were heaviest, and stop it. Cal gave them a map marked with an old logging camp deep into the trees, a place people avoided. "That's where it started," he said. "Be careful." They drove out to the trailhead, armed with flashlights, a hunting knife, and a gas can from Lucas's garage. The woods were still, no birds, no wind, just the crunch of their boots on pine needles. The deeper they went, the colder it got, the air thick with the smell of sap and something acidic, like rot. The whispers came back soft at first, then louder, yelling their names, their parents' names, voices of long-dead people. The logging camp was a ruin, rusty saws, fallen cabins, vines strangling everything. In the middle was a clearing, and in the clearing was a tree, huge and gnarled, its bark etched with symbols that stung to gaze at. The whispers were screaming now, echoing from the tree itself. Lucas's flashlight was beginning to flicker, and Sarah clamped his arm. "This is it," she whispered, her voice shaking. "It's here." Before they could take their first step, the faceless man materialized, not by the tree but behind them, silent, its empty head shining like polished bone. Sarah screamed and let go of the gas can. Lucas hurled the knife, but the figure disappeared, then reappeared nearer. Whoa system, drawing nearer with each step, its hollow head bent as if in consideration of them. Lucas grasped Sarah's hand, dragging her towards the tree. "We must burn it," he screamed, pouring gasoline onto the etched trunk. The whispers screamed, a cacophony of voices, and the faceless man ran, its long fingers touching Sarah's arm. She screamed, blood rising, but Lucas struck a match, tossing it at the tree. The flame crackled, unnatural and green, and the tree writhed, its limbs lashing like arms. The faceless man screamed, a sound not sound, but a vibration that rattled their bones. It stumbled, its form fading, then disintegrated, reducing to ash with a reek of rot. The whispers stopped, the wood fell silent, the air suddenly warm again. They stumbled back into town, battered and bloody, the woods again a woods. Blackthorn was changed afterwards, lighter, as though something had been taken off. The missing pet flyers were taken down. The mirrors in the bar stopped fogging. Lucas and Sarah never spoke of it afterwards, but they didn't have to. They moved to Eau Claire a month afterwards in a one-bedroom apartment, jumping at shadows but healing incrementally. But this is the surprise. A year later, Lucas got a package, no return address. In it was one photo, fuzzy and old, a group of 1920s loggers, standing in that very clearing, a thin, tall figure with no face in the background, looking on. On the back, in spidery handwriting, one word, again. If that sent shivers down your spine, hit the like button. This makes them keep coming. Subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss the next one. And in the comments, tell me, ever heard something in the woods or seen something unexplainable? Tell me, I read all of them. Be safe and perhaps give old trees a wide berth for a while.